This is the Action Cast, the only podcast that thinks the gumbo was a tragedy. And now, our feature presentation. Yes, it is once again the Action Cast. I am Joe Drilling, and joining me this evening, we're doing a tag team episode tonight. It's Bryce Wilson.
Joe, every time I do this show, I ask myself the same question, which is, God, why didn't I just go fishing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable question to ask, quite frankly, yeah. doing this show. So hey, it's another month, another Action Cast, and we couldn't rustle up any more bodies to come talk about Hard Target, which is kind of a bummer. I was really hoping Angela would make it. She lived in New Orleans for almost a decade.
I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed with Angela because, I've stayed with her, more than a few times in New Orleans, and never once did she take me to Mid-City's thriving manhunting scene.
Yeah, that's
way to drop the ball, Angela.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah. But, I think, maybe that was for the best, because you could have ended up in the middle of the French Quarter screaming for people to help you and then just gunned down in cold blood in the middle of the street.
This is true.
So, yes, we are talking about John Woo's Hard to Kill. Yes. John Woo's Hard Target.
We have been betrayed by our allies and left for dead behind enemy lines, and now the two of us must attempt to get a podcast out of this mess.
That's right.
Thanks for nothing, guys.
If this podcast can reach the river by the end of the night, yes, we will get
$10,000
in a money belt.
We will drive across the country and rob each of the Action Cast members' homes.
That's right.
We might not reach $10,000 after taking everything that they have, but we will give it our best.
That's
Gosh
right.
Darn it.
That's right.
So
this movie has an interesting history, and part of what I think is really fascinating about it before we get into the film itself. Also, I have no news. The only tiny news bit I have, and I'm not even going to play the sound drop, is just that I think it's hilarious that someone put Tenet on a Game Boy Advance cartridge.
I'm just going to say that I find it hilarious that every week we beg you not to do the news, and the one week that you didn't do the news is
the week nobody else is here.
No one is here to enjoy it.
That's right.
This is why we can't have nice things, guys.
That's right. That's right.
So wait, are you talking about the history of the podcast or the history of the movie?
The history of the movie.
Okay. Well, before we do the history of the movie, let's just point out the reason why we're doing this is because some confused algorithm accidentally made
extremely so
our second episode of the new run, our Time Cop episode, by far and away our most popular episode. It has received 60 times the views of our next most popular episode, and probably just as much more than the old incarnation of the Action Cast. And no one can figure out why.
57,000 views currently.
Yes. Our next most popular one is Robot Jocks, which hasn't even cracked 1,000.
Has not even cracked 1,000 yet.
And that one's directly after Time Cop, so I'm just assuming that a lot of those views are just people coming from the Time Cop episode of that. So we don't know why people love the Time Cop episode. It's not our best episode. We didn't have that much interesting to say about the movie, but YouTube was like, "Baby, you're going to be a star."
That's right.
Like
the progression of most watched / listened to least is very, very strange in my view, because it goes from Time Cop far and away the most, Robot Jocks way, way, way less than that, but still more than like pretty much everything else, to Ninja Turtles, which is like almost 300, and then after that it's just like everything else is under 200, and a lot of them are under 100, but like Excalibur and Darkman are neck and neck, which is so weird because Excalibur, well, whatever, I talked about it when we watched it, but the fact that there's enough people who might have nostalgia for that movie to make it, our fourth most watched or fifth most watched.
I'm not saying that that's like I'm not saying that that's a like beloved movie on the level of E.T., but that movie has always had like a cult, like a passionate cult. So I'm not surprised by Darkman and Excalibur. I am
But
like,
Excalibur more than the Matrix feels weird to me.
Right, fair enough. But I am baffled by Time Cop and continue to be baffled by. So he basically decided to retempt the algorithm gods and see if the key to our success is Jean-Claude Van Damme movies in April. Here you go, YouTube.
If it's not, if this doesn't work, then next we have to do. Then a year from now, we'll do another time travel movie, and if that doesn't work, a year after that, we'll do another Peter Hyams movie. And
right. I like the way you're thinking here.
Well, hopefully, eventually, we'll hit on the thing, and see what's going on, but. Tonight we are going to talk about Hard Target, which I have a confession, and I'm almost glad that you're the only one here right now, so I can't be completely pilloried for this. This was the first time I have viewed this film in its entirety.
I don't think anyone would have pilloried either for this, because as we discussed in our worldwide phenomenon Time Cop episode, I don't think any of us are particularly big JCVD fans, so...
I mean, I'm not. I kind of am now because he seems like he's had a very humbling life experience after he wasn't a big star anymore, and he actually seems like a really chill dude now. But I mean, I loved Bloodsport was one of those regular watches when I was a kid. It's one of those movies that I've owned at least twice, once on VHS and once on digital media. I definitely actually. Double Impact was also a regular rental when I was a kid, which is the one where he plays twins, and Jeffrey Lewis plays his surrogate uncle figure, and Bolo Young is in it because Bloodsport, I guess, and it's two Van Dammes versus the Hong Kong triad, which is that's a lot of fun. I saw the Dennis Rodman one when it was new. I saw Street Fighter when it was new. I watched a lot of, and the fact that I just kind of missed this one is a little weird, I think.
Well, you see, and I don't have that kind of history or affection with any of those movies. I mean, I've seen some of them, but I've never revisited them. I did definitely see this movie and see it all the way through. And I can remember that my attitude at the time was well, checked off that John Woo one. It was because I was going for a completist run on him. Yeah. And I wasn't mad about it. I didn't feel like I felt after I watched Paycheck or anything. Right, but it was also very much a check and move on. I don't know what was wrong with me because I had way more fun watching the movie this time. I thought it was just a blast. So
I loved it. I'm not at all sad that I bought the Blu-ray.
Way to drop the ball, film snob college me. That was no way to play.
Yeah, so. I think part of it though does go back to film snob college me as well, which is we were talking before we started, and the trailer for this movie was on the VHS of Army of Darkness. That was one that I damn near wore out as a young teenager. So I heard a lot of the what kind of name is Chance? My mama took one. All this stuff that's in the trailer over and over again. But I never watched the movie, and then by the time I was old enough that I definitely was embracing my love of action films, even in college, but I still I knew that John Woo's American movies are basically universally bad. I don't even really like Face Off has its moments, but this whole thing where everybody thinks Face Off is one of the best action movies of the 90s, I straight up do not get it. That movie's boring as hell. There's a ton of downtime in it. Even the crazy Nick Cage stuff isn't that good because he's kind of playing, for most of the movie, he's playing John Travolta playing Nick Cage, and he's sort of downplaying it. And then John Travolta is trying to play John Travolta playing Nick Cage. And it doesn't quite work. And it's got a couple of really great lines. I could eat a peach for hours, and I want to take his face off, and of course all that stuff. But I think that movie is actually largely super boring. And like you said, Paycheck, I was dumb enough to go see it in the theater because I love. It's one of my favorite Philip K. Dick stories. and I was like, I gotta see what they do to it. I gotta find out. I gotta know. And I'm gonna give John Woo the benefit of the doubt, I guess, one more time. And it's just like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 7 times by that point or whatever, shame on me. This, though, now having watched it, is the only, and I do want to talk about the history of the film, but this now feels to me like the only one of Woo's American films that actually feels like his Hong Kong output.
So what I will say for Face Off, and I don't necessarily even disagree with any of your criticisms, and I don't rank it as high as some of his fans do. What I will say is that I think that the action, like for me looking at his American films, is the one film where the action feels like John Woo action and kind of reaches that level of emotional intensity. Having now rewatched Hard Target, I'm prepared to say that I think the action is just as good, but I think that that's the reason why a lot of people, aside from the camp elements, and like the Nicolas Cage meme shit, give Face Off like a pass that his other American films don't get.
Yeah.
And Face Off has like downtime, but it doesn't have downtime, say, the way that Mission Impossible 2 has downtime.
I'm still shocked that movie didn't kill that franchise, honestly. That movie is so bad.
Well, it almost did. It almost did for 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this, it feels, well, we'll talk about this when we get into it, but it feels like a Hong Kong movie in a lot of specific ways, to the point where I'm surprised that there wasn't more post-production meddling in the film. Like,
apparently there was,
but there's there's very specific Okay, well, I'll talk about the one that I noticed the most. Is like a way that I'll see him end a scene all the fucking time in his Hong Kong films is like someone will say like a potent line of dialogue and he'll cut the scene then and like hit it with like a really heavy music beat and then like cut to an unrelated image that then turns into the next scene. And like the one that's like right on top of my head is like, it's when she's talking to the vet friend at the homeless shelter, like about her dad, and he's like laying it on the line that we sleep on the streets. It's a hard thing. I forget the line, but he like gives this like really impassioned line, and then like this blues look of a guitar comes in, and just like this slow crossfade into the next scene. And I was like, huh, that's like a real Hong Kong transition there. I'm surprised that like they did it that way. And then like it kept doing it, and I was just like, this is wild that this like very specific stylistic tick made it in, because American movies don't transition their scenes that way. And it was just it feels like I said it has like it has Hong Kong film logic to it in a way that's like hard to quantify.
Yeah, I think I also took a note about Graham Revell's score and that sort of the blues licks and all that stuff, which I thought really suited the film well. I think Graham Revell is like a pretty underrated film composer, and his work on this is super good. He also did great work on From Dusk Till Dawn, which has like similar, American South and then into Mexico vibes. But I think that. So I do want to talk a little bit about the history before we get like beat by beat into the story and all that stuff, which is like Wu was sort of one of the first to kind of self-exodus from Hong Kong in anticipation of the return to Great Britain, or the return from Great Britain to China. And I actually read an article about that talked like in pretty like stunning detail about like, he was aware of what happened at Tiananmen Square, and like knowing that Hong Kong was going to go back to the Chinese, like he just didn't want like the Chinese film board of censors like hanging over his head with any films he wanted to make, and he just didn't want to be around for that. So he dipped out a few years before that happened. And this film sort of came together because apparently JCVD specifically wanted to work with John Woo and thought that their styles would complement each other, which they do. But apparently JCVD also was involved in some of the like studio meddling edits that happened on the back end, allegedly. So That's kind of an interesting factor, especially since there is, and apparently it's on the internet. Like, you can find it on Pirate Bay or whatever. I didn't bother looking for it or watching it. I kind of want to know. There's apparently a 2-hour version of this movie that sort of represents Woo's original cut that's never been like actually properly released. But it's a work print, and then there's a second work print, I guess, that cuts it down to about 2 hours, to about an hour and 50 minutes. So it's like another 10 minutes longer than the theatrical version. But what I find strange about that is not that John Woo made a long movie, because that's not weird, but that this movie, I didn't watch this movie and feel like, oh, it's not like when we did Cobra all those years ago, and you're like, you get to the second act of Cobra and you're just like, what happened? Like, right. I feel like there's a whole major story beat missing in this movie, and like, then you read and you find out, like, yeah, there was supposed to be this whole bit with the knife cult and all this, weird stuff, and then it's just like crunched into like a 2-minute like montage with music over the top of it, and it's just like, why? And the movie kind of doesn't make sense without that stuff. And I'm actually
Cobra doesn't make sense.
Yeah, right. And I didn't feel that way watching this. I wasn't like, oh, I feel like I'm missing something.
When I was talking about that scene transition before, it was like kind of like, you can see that in a lot of his work where they do cut things down. Like, you can see that transition all over A Better Tomorrow too, where it's just like mashing scenes like together, to just move the plot along. This movie doesn't feel cut down. Like, I suppose I could technically be curious about what the longer cut would look like, but I don't feel like I'm missing anything particularly necessary. I'm assuming it would be more relation stuff, but
right.
No offense to anything. I don't know how much I need to see between the charisma titans that are Jean-Claude Van Damme and Yancy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine with this cut.
Yeah, Yancy Butler for when you can't afford Kathy Ireland.
Right, exactly. I suppose if it had more Wilford Brimley in it, I'd
take more Wilford Brimley.
Or Scottish accented Arnold Vosloo with hair? ? Or even more Ted Raimi if we follow that character for a while. But I don't feel like there's anything essential missing. I don't know. I feel like 90 minutes is about the correct amount of time to spend with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So, but it was cut down from his original, by Universal, which also it wasn't a Universal. It was a negative acquisition, as they say, or negative purchase, which is basically like the movie was done and Universal just like pays the original, indie, for lack of a better word, indie studio who put it together, just pays them and then distributes it. And it was one of those, which seems weird in some ways, but then they cut the shit out of it apparently on the back end. So
right. Do you want to give a plot? The plot summary is The Most Dangerous Game.
It's The Most Dangerous Game, but it's even more
set in knowledge.
Yeah. So that was one thing I wanted to say though that I read. Yeah. Apparently, the script did not originally take place in New Orleans. It was rewritten to explain JCVD's accent, which is more than they ever do for Arnold Schwarzenegger, ever.
I gotta wonder how much that does explain JCVD's accent, though, because that is one Wasso-ass accent in this film. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, well, also there's like a difference between Belgian and Cajun. Like, they both speak French, but the dialect is not the same.
Yeah. I think the setting adds a lot to the movie, so like no complaints there. But
that's what I was gonna say. It feels so natural to be in that, like that. It feels like a part of this movie, and like if this movie was set in New York or L.A., it would be way less interesting.
Like, and well, I'm sure we'll get there, but yeah, can you imagine like the end of the movie taking place in like a generic warehouse instead of where it ends up fucking taking place?
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But So it's the setup of the movie is not Kathy Ireland looking for her missing father, who was a homeless veteran. We find out. We know he's dead because the first thing that you see in this movie is him getting hunted to death and shot on a dock. So not exactly a great mystery. But as she's looking for him, she runs afoul of some muggers and is luckily spotted, as one did in the early 90s or the late 80s, by very mulleted Jean-Claude Van Damme, who proceeds to kick the shit out of them. And I'll say, this was the moment that made me perk up, because there's, like, A, the action's good, B, every shot that John Woo does with JCVD is a hero shot. But there was a shot where he flips a guy onto like the hood of a car, and it cuts to that perfect John Woo slow-mo, like that's just the correct rate of slow-mo.
Yeah.
And this big puff of dust comes off the hood of the car, and like I literally sat in my seat and just went, holy shit, this movie's gonna look actually good. Like, this is gonna look good for like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie in the early 90s. This isn't gonna look good like for a John Woo movie where he didn't have complete creative control. It's just going to be a good-looking movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good-looking movie. I have some GIFs going right now on the screen, but the one that I wanted to call attention to is the first one I showed, which is him breaking the dude's arm at the elbow, which happens in that initial
this uses its R rating.
Yeah.
All the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is definitely a John Woo thing. Here we go. We're there again. We've come back around to the arm-breaking GIF, which is just
although it does
lovely.
do the classic 90s movie fallacy where he like throws the scumbags like through the picture window, which probably costs 100 times more than what that woman had in her wallet. So
right, yeah,
oops,
of course.
Well,
there's a lot of that kind of stuff. This movie, you have to suspend your disbelief pretty hard, because there's a lot of really silly stuff, mostly from the bad guys, as the movie moves on, where you're just like, you get to a point where they're just like murdering random people in broad daylight, and no cops are showing up. Like, it's just whatever.
They're on strike, Joe.
Yeah, they're on strike. That's right. Also, we didn't mention, but you mentioned Ted Raimi is in this movie, but Rob Tapert and Sam Raimi were executive producers on this movie, and
yes.
Apparently, Sam Raimi did his best to do right by John Woo, but he, didn't have final cut, and neither did John Woo, so there was only so much he could do for him.
Sam Raimi just bringing good things into the world at all times. That's all you can say.
So. Yeah. Also, before the fight, when he's in the diner, they tried to write like dime store detective novel like dialogue for him in this movie, and it just doesn't work for him at all. So he's in this diner and he's scrounging up the last of his change to pay for a bowl of gumbo and a cup of coffee, and the waitress is like, "How was the gumbo, Chance?" And he goes, "It was a tragedy. The coffee was almost tolerable." And it's just like, that's like, Bogart could have made that sound profound, right? But JCVD cannot, and it just sounds really dumb.
Yeah, it's I mean, we kind of went over this before, and I don't want to spend a whole movie just shitting on him, but he's the least enjoyable part of the movie. He's not fun to watch or a good actor for me. I don't find him particularly charismatic. He's certainly athletic enough to pull off the action scenes, and really in this one, that's all that fucking matters.
Yep.
But watching scenes like the diner scene, I'm just like, well, yeah, don't really feel like I'm missing much, gotta say.
I mean, he's the stoic, stony face. He's even more like he has wider range in like Bloodsport, which was his first movie, and by this one, he is, he's sort of the discount Clint Eastwood in a spaghetti western. His facial expression really never changes. He's pretty monotone. But he does a lot of high kicks, which is, in fact, Woo showcases that right away. Right. The very first thing is he pulls his trench coat aside, like you think he's gonna draw a gun from a hip holster, but no, it's just so that he can kick two dudes in the face with one kick.
Right.
Which is wonderful.
it should be noticed that, like, yeah, that Wu knows exactly how to use him, and like I said, every shot feels like a hero shot, you know, and it works until he opens his mouth. I mean, like, it's prime ridiculous. Like the mullet cannot be overstated here.
It's fantastic.
But it's just, but Wu knows how to shoot him. He knows how to utilize the actual athletic skills that this guy has, and the action scenes are pretty fucking great. So, you know,
yeah, and the first one really, I mean, again, like he really goes for it in the first one. He fights these 4 dudes, and there's just there's fairly judicious use of slow-mo, which is another thing that I feel like Wu's American movies get way too heavy on slow-mo. This one even a little bit, but not too bad in this one. But there are some later on where I'm just like, oh my God, just show me one sequence at 24 frames per second, John. Just one. Like,
right.
You know, but you know, that first fight, it's just the way he shoots Van Damme's kicks and the arm break going through the window, all that stuff. It just, I didn't actually take note of who the cinematographer is on this, and if it's someone that Wu had worked with previously, but you know, kudos to whoever it was, because they do a really fantastic job.
Russell Carpenter, who shot a little film called Titanic, also shot True Lies, and also shot Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. But you know, can't hold that.
They can't all be zingers.
Apparently, can't all be zingers. Yeah, currently he is now shooting the Avatar sequels. So
yeah, of course he is.
Carpenter apparently really likes him.
Yeah.
And also Shallow Hal. So,
wow. Okay. Well,
yeah.
They can't all be zingers.
A varied career, this one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So so like you said, this is Most Dangerous Game, which I feel like, you know, even when this movie was maybe not brand new, but certainly like if I had watched it in high school, you know, like when I was in high school, which is the same time you were in high school because we're the same age. I don't know about where you went to school, but where I went to school, I took honors English as a freshman, and Most Dangerous Game was required reading. So
it was indeed.
You know, once you have, like, all of a sudden everything, like, you're like, oh, Running Man is Most Dangerous Game, and Hard Target is Most Dangerous Game, and, you know, et cetera, like, on down the line of all these action movies and video games that use the Most Dangerous Game sort of framing device.
In this case, though, the Most Dangerous Game is being run by Lance Hendrickson, who, you know, is once again does exactly what he's supposed to do, and slightly stranger and more offbeat, though nonetheless effective. Arnold Vosloo, playing a Scottish person? Question mark. And also with a full head of hair.
You talked about it. You talked about a Wiseau accent earlier, and let me tell you, Vosloo has the most Wiseauian accent in this movie. I could not tell. I wasn't sure if he was supposed to be Russian or Celtic of some stripe or what he was going for at all. I was completely lost at what. I mean, I guess Dutch, because his name is like Pick Van Cleef or something like that. So I don't know what
it is, as the kids say, a choice.
It is absolutely. It was, but he's great. I mean, and also it reminded me that, like, I took a note that just says having Arnold Vosloo play a good guy is illegal. And that's why the Darkman sequels, like, 1,000,000% do not work, is because they replaced Liam Neeson with Arnold Vosloo as Darkman. And it's just like, he should be Darkman should be fighting Arnold Vosloo.
Right. Oh, man. You had a vision right there. So
yeah. But there's a slow-mo match lighting sequence, speaking of Arnold Vosloo. So Yancy Butler, like you said, she's looking for her dad. He's dead, as we know. The police are on strike, which is supposed to, I guess, excuse, like, part of why they're able to do their Most Dangerous Game shit and not get caught.
I will say that what my favorite thing about the police strike scene is the Julie Dash slow-mo solo birthday cupcake shot, which is, like, for some reason shot to be, like, almost pornographic. And when I'm talking about this movie having, like, a very discernible and strangely specific Hong Kong vibe. I'm talking about shots like that. Like, that's how you introduce that character in a Hong Kong movie. You don't introduce that character this way in a American film. And it sucks that he apparently lost creative control on this, but like, if you hadn't have told me, I wouldn't know.
Right.
Like, there are just so many weird little fingerprints like that.
Yeah. Opening with the detective lighting their single candle on their birthday cupcake or whatever that's too big to be a cupcake but too small to be a cake. So lighting the single candle on it, and then when Yancy Butler walks in, she just puts it in her desk drawer with the candle still lit.
Right.
Has a whole conversation with Yancy Butler and then opens the drawer and takes it back out and blows it out right before it burns out in her cake. Yeah, in slow motion.
Yes.
So she's the detective I guess she's the scab detective or whatever. Also, for the record, fuck police unions a million times over. But she's apparently, still burning the midnight oil and trying to do police work, even though the shitty cop union is on strike. And she also basically just blows off Yancy Butler and is like, well, if he was homeless, like, we don't care, basically. This movie, like,
at least the movie's honest,
right?
Yeah. I really like Julie Dash too, like as an actor and as a director. It's pretty much a nothing role, which is a little bit too par for the course, sadly, for Julie Dash's career. But,
I thought you were going to say for John Woo's female characters, but
that too. But it's you hate to see it, but if you have to hate to see it, it's good to see it in this.
It's good.
She's always a welcome present.
Right.
Even if sorry. Oh man, we fucked up. Cassie Lemons. I don't know why I even said that. Yes, Cassie Lemons is who we're talking about.
I was like, that name doesn't sound right, but I don't have the cast list in front of me to check it, so I'm just going to roll with it because I assume that I forgot. Cassie
that was my
Lemons.
bad entirely. So yes.
But so she's the only cop who's working. She tells Yancy Butler that she, he's homeless. We don't give a shit, basically. And I feel like this movie, this is where I kind of wish Ethan was here, because one, I'm sure he'd have very colorful things to say about police unions, but also, I feel like this movie has a chance at like having something almost like First Blood-esque to say about America's relationship with its veterans.
Well, yeah.
But it just doesn't care enough to actually say it at any point.
No, you see, I don't know if I'm going to agree with you there, because I think that it's pretty obvious that the subtext of the movie is that, these people become disposable the second they're out of the army. And, like, as you do. So I think the film's subtext there is pretty fucking clear. But it's I don't know, it's definitely there. I don't know how you would watch this movie and be like, gee, they keep talking about how all these vets are homeless and on the streets and are literally worth more money dead than alive. What are they getting at here? Like, I don't think it's particularly not there.
Willing to put. Also, I love the economics of this whole situation is just like, that's this movie does not like rich people at all. Here's the mechanics. This isn't revealed until a little later in the movie, but since we're at the point where we're talking about Yancy Butler's dead dad, we may as well run it down just so it's crystal clear for anybody who hasn't seen this movie or has and just can't keep it all straight. So Lance Hendrickson and Arnold Vosloo give this. So there's this sort of scuzzy dude who pays homeless people, or whoever, I guess, really, but mostly homeless people take him up on it because they need the money the most, to hand out like phone sex adverts in the French Quarter or whatever to tourists or to whoever, similar to Vegas. You find all those cards for call girls or for whatever, and he pays them not much, it seems, to hand out these flyers for phone sex lines. And so Lance Hendrickson is hooked up with this dude, and he's like another poor person, really, who's exploited by these rich assholes, because you see his office is super scuzzy. You see his car is like shittier than the car I drove in high school, and I drove a real piece of shit in high school. But anyways, he's that guy finds the homeless veterans, because they have like, the one thing that I kind of love about the villains in this movie is they like kind of have a code of honor, but like not quite. Like, they play at having a code of honor.
Yeah, no, they certainly don't, because at the end of the day, the one guy escapes his hunter, and then they gun him down anyway. So
right.
It's not like these guys ever have a chance.
Right, but there's we only choose combat veterans because we wouldn't just want to like gun down innocent people. And we only choose there's the thing about there's the whole thing towards the end about like Arnold Vosloo is the voice of reason for the villains at the end of the movie, and he's like, let's just kill him from the helicopter. And Lance Hendrickson is like, there's no honor in that. And he's like, who cares? Let's just kill him from the helicopter.
I like after that they go back and like it's maybe the one little moment of humanity you get with Lance Hendrickson is when he's like slightly insecure with that Arnold Vosloo like there for a moment where he's like you mad at me, bro? Like just real sad, like, oh, I fucked up there, didn't I? Should have just let you get it from the helicopter, but
yep.
Oh well.
Yep. So they kind of like, they pretend they have a code of honor. So it's combat veterans, they're homeless, they try to be people who don't have a family so that nobody will come looking for them, which that's the big screw up, right? Is that Yancy Butler's dad said he didn't have anybody, and he was lying. Obviously he has a daughter and he had an ex-wife, and who we never see. And so she comes looking for him, and that's like going to blow the whole lid off of their operation. And also the hubris of the villains, like they could very easily just get away and be done, and they just don't, right. At a point later in the film. But so they give, money to, well, no, they give $100 to them to fill out the application, which ends up being, because as you said, even when they win, they still lose. So the $100 is the only money they actually ever give right. the contestant. And then they give them a money belt full of $100 bills.
Which even in 1990s money is like not that much.
Right.
Know? Like you make that $100,000 and you're like, ooh, man, like that's kind of tempting. Like you could get a house in the 90s for $100,000. Like you make it $10,000, that's just fucking insulting.
Right.
Like I like that when like Lance Hendrickson's giving his big evil villain monologue and like is giving the guy the spiel of why he should do it. He's like, man, you could take that money and buy clothes. Like, like it's not even like,
right. I was like doing the math. Like I'm
not even like it's not even giving him all that much. And I think it's actually a pretty brilliant creative choice because it makes like that much more of a kick in the nads,
right? Because that's what I was going to say, because they get $500,000 from the hunters to do this,
right?
And the hunters, the way the movie treats the hunters actually is one of my favorite things as well. They're all these fucking insecure dorks in their camouflage, right. Where Sven-Ole Thorsen, who I didn't even realize that was him until almost when he died, but Sven-Ole Thorsen has this like loud Hawaiian shirt and is constantly chomping on a cigar like he's a tough guy.
None of these guys are fucking cool. It's once again I think it's a purposeful creative choice and like
absolutely
a great one. And even maybe this isn't so intentional, but like it's funny how like even like the Hendrickson stuff like is cheeseball, like him elegantly playing the piano in his like Garden District like mansion, right. Like as he's like selling the guy on the experience is like just textbook movie villain shit from the 90s, and I don't know how much of that is just them following the cliche and how much of them playing up the cliche, but it's either way, it's just fucking dorky at this point.
Hendrickson is absolutely one of the most delightful things to watch in this movie. The fact that he is watching himself play that Beethoven piece in the mirror, like Patrick Bateman, like fucking that girl while looking at himself in the mirror. It's the same energy. Right. It's Lance Hendrickson watching himself play this complex Beethoven piece in the mirror. It's just, I mean, he's in terms of character work, he's the best part of the movie.
Right.
And the whole final confrontation and fight, as much as you can call it that, with JCVD is also fantastic, but we'll get to that.
Yes,
but yeah, so basically they pay these guys $100 and they get $500,000 from the rich assholes, and that's the economics of this transaction, because they never make good on the $10K and they always take it back from them after they're dead.
Meanwhile, and I don't want to derail this, especially because I'm super bummed about how the Amazon thing went, but the movie does have like a weird like anti-union bent where the next time we see Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's like trying to get his job and like can't because of like union politics. And so the Yancy Butler tracks him down to the docks and asks for his help again, and basically offers to give him, once again talking about the economics of this movie, which, you know, for an era that's like, you know, defined by like cops living in like, you know, beachside condos and, you know, waitresses like living in like, you know, luxury apartments in downtown LA, like I'm gonna give any movie points that, you know, reminds the viewer that paying your bills is an actual motivation in most people's lives. But I will say that there's a great little moment where people are being assholes down the docks, and then finally someone pulls away, and once again, and you get this great shot of like John Van Damme has changed his mind, and he's waiting by this like line of blue barrels.
Yes.
And once again, like every shot's the hero shot.
They're
like,
all hero shots.
Cannot exaggerate
100%.
it enough.
Yeah,
like more so than most comic book movies I've seen. Like every shot is the hero shot.
Well, it's
like,
a John Woo movie. I mean, think about how he shoots Chow Yun-fat here's a fucked up thing. This movie is the one that came immediately after Hard Boiled, which is a
step down.
Yeah, I feel like if I'd watched them, if I was like savvy enough as a 10-year-old to have watched these movies back to back, I'd be like, well, that's a disappointment. But now being able to watch them sort of removed from that context, I think this movie rules. But yeah, this comes right after Hard Boiled, and he shoots Chow Yun-fat just exactly that way in Hard Boiled, and The Killer. And Better Tomorrow 2.
Killer's got some of the best hero shots of all time. Better Tomorrow 1, it's got some amazing stuff.
Better Tomorrow 1, Chow Yun-fat doesn't get as much of any of the hero shots.
I disagree with you, sir. There,
not until the end.
No. The shot in Better Tomorrow 1 and the opening. I have that movie on VHS. I watch it all the fucking time. The shot in the opening credit montage where he lights the cigar off the counterfeit bill, and it gives him that quick little freeze frame jolt. And then that shot where he's planting the pistols when he's gonna go fuck up the guy who fucked them up right before he gets his leg bust up, and he's like, and like it cuts out the diegetic sound of the movie and just has the soundtrack, and it's just his face, and he's just got that big smile on, and like I think he's like slouching over a couple of girls, and you just watch him slip the pistols into the potted plant as he's doing that. So even though he's acting a total fool, you just see him coldly set up like this ambush. There are amazing shots for Chow Yun-fat in Better Tomorrow 1. So,
all right, fair enough.
Yeah,
that's such a good sequence, by the way. When he goes back and gets the guns out of the plants and is like gunning all those dudes down.
We need to do that. I don't think we've ever done a Woo Hong Kong.
We did Hard Boiled.
We did do Hard Boiled.
We did do Hard Boiled.
Sorry, Joe. It's been 10 years.
Yeah, right. No shit. But. So yeah, this forklift has a bunch of blue oil drums or barrels on it, and it reverses out of the way, and there's just Van Damme with his trench coat and mullet blowing in the breeze. Just fantastic. And so she wants to pay him. Okay, so she is looking around the missions and stuff, and the detective says like, look at the missions and the homeless shelters, but take someone with you, or I'll be filling out a missing persons report for you. So she finds the guy who saved her from getting mugged at the diner, and that's JCVD. And I don't think that the movie has an anti-union broadly stance. Like I think this movie is too pro poor people to be anti-union. Right. It's just they need something. They need a
reoccurring element. Like I don't think John Woo set out to like make an anti-union action movie. It's just because that in the early 90s, the prevailing stereotype was like unions made like lazy people who took advantage of like business owners, and like because we didn't understand just how much worse you were going to get fucked without them. So like there's like it's prevalent at the time, you know, like even if you watch The Simpsons or something.
Right.
So it's like, but so like I said, I am not going to play Ethan Chang this episode. I'm not going to take the movie to task for it. I'm just saying that like I had this like Well, the first thing I thought was, is this John Woo's inside Llewellyn Davis? But then the second thing I thought was, that's two anti-union scenes right back to back. So, but
yeah, but
whatever.
there should be anti-police union scenes because fuck police unions.
Yes, I am 100% in agreement of that.
So yeah, so he owes $217 in back union dues. And Yancy Butler has offered him $100 per. You were about to get to this, the economics of the situation. Yancy Butler, it seems like to her $100 a day is really not much, but to JCVD it is quite a bit. Obviously, he needs it to get back on a fishing boat so he can work and so he can live, basically. And so he goes back to her and says, I'll go with you, but you're going to give me $217 for 2 days of work. And she just, sort of relents and says the $17 it's no shit off her shorts.
1990s dollars, guys.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Right.
That could get you some shit back then.
Yeah. So, that is when business starts to pick up, as they say in professional wrestling. So
yeah,
I can't remember the black guy's name off the top of my head now, but he's a homeless veteran. He ends up getting on one of the most dangerous game runs later in the movie, but he is sort of helping them. He knows her dad. He's seen him around, and points them in the direction of. That's how they get to the phone sex solicitor guy, and that's where we get the slow motion match lighting scene from Van Damme.
Right.
And that's sort of like then there's a little bit of detective stuff that happens early on, and I feel like in the long run,
I'm gonna say that I'm guessing that the character's name is Elijah Roper, and he is played by Willie C. Carpenter.
Yeah.
Who was also in Action Cast favorite Brawl in Cell Block 99. So
yes,
has kept in the game.
Yes,
so,
that movie rules. We should do that movie sometime.
Yeah. Let's table that. I don't know if I want to be on an Ethan Chang podcast about a Craig Zoller film because one of us won't leave from that podcast. So
yeah, I didn't see Dragged Across Concrete, but I heard.
Okay, let me. Well, shit, because I'm gonna get reported otherwise. But let me just put it this way: I initially went to the mat for Dragged Across Concrete. I still very strongly go to the mat for Dragged Across Concrete because I think that the ability to, neutrally portray evil people is an important thing both to the crime genre and to fucking art in general. Mm-hmm. And I think that our generation's inability to understand the difference between depiction and endorsement is going to be the death of art, essentially, and the death of quality movies. And basically the movie is set up that Tony Kittles and Michael J. White are co-protagonists. And if you're reading the movie in another way, I legitimately think you're reading the movie in bad faith. However, I've read some of Craig Zoller's books. I have, in fact, just read his comic debut. And the problem with Craig Zoller is that he doesn't provoke people on accident with these movies. He genuinely wants to provoke you. He is trying to trigger the libs. And there are, in hindsight, a couple of scenes in Dragged Across Concrete that I will acknowledge cross various lines that I don't want to get into right now. And it felt like Zoller knowingly and purposefully tweaking people. And I don't know him personally. I'm not going to go ahead and say that he's I don't think he's doing it because he's a raging racist, because once again, he wrote the best part for Tony Kittles entire career. He gave Michael J. White the best part that guy has had in a solid decade. But
since Spawn,
but he does. Well, I was going to say since you made me lose my track. It's just The Dark Knight. But point being is that he like I said, it is a stated goal of his to piss people off, and as someone who thinks he's a genuine talent, I find that really frustrating because it always means that his stuff is going to be like just a little too adolescent to ever be able to defend like 110%. But that being said, I think he's like a genuinely great creative voice, and he's one of my favorite screenwriters to emerge in the last decade. And I'm gonna keep watching the shit. So, let me just say this: is if I almost wish I hadn't read his books, because it was easier to defend him when I hadn't read his books, because like I feel like the literalizing process of shooting things makes him tone himself down like just that 10% enough where it's plausible deniability, and like I think collaborating with people like makes him tone things just 10% enough so it's plausible deniability. On the books, where he has no filter, no censors, no nothing, like he is his own worst enemy. He's just shooting himself in the dick. It's just grimdark from start to finish, and like it eventually becomes comical. Like it becomes comical. Like he's got this book called Wraiths of a Broken Land, which Ridley Scott and Drew Goddard almost turned into a movie. I don't see how they possibly could have done it. But here's how Wraiths of a Broken Land opens with a woman who's been in sex slavery for like years, has been addicted to drugs, is actively trying to kill herself at this point, or not even actively suicidal, just like does not care about herself so much because she's been abused so hard that she's like just trying to die essentially. And they bring in this dog and make her care about the dog, and then they start torturing the dog so this woman will keep herself alive. This is on page 1 of the book, okay? And almost every page has something like that is like daring you not to read it. And like I wouldn't mind it if it felt like this was where he's genuinely coming from, but like it's just these fucking elbow nudges of like, oh, you're gonna stop now? Oh, you're gonna chicken out now? Oh, you're gonna pussy out now? Like, is this bothering you? Is this triggering you? Like, and it's like, fucking stop, man! Like, get out of your own goddamn way. So I suppose you could say I have mixed feelings about S. Craig
Zoller. Yeah, sounds
but
like it.
But I still don't. Yeah, still, but not as mixed feelings as our friend Ethan has. I'll bet.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. So let's go back to this movie. Sorry, I like you. I can still manage an epic derail. So,
yeah.
So you are listening to the Action Cast.
That's right.
So
that's right. They're doing the detective work, and I think that in the 2-hour version, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there's more of this stuff and not more kicking people in the face. But for what it is, it works, and it's pretty economical in the theatrical version, at least. They don't spend a ton of time detectiving.
I don't know how much more of this you need. It's funny. One of the few notes I took, and I apologize for this again. For some reason, I just wrote down the filmmaker Julie Dash in my notes, and then repeated on the podcast. I knew it was Cassie Lemons. Like the one part where you maybe do see a plot hole in retrospect, because I wrote to my notes, is that it feels like at some point she just deputizes him and like kind of adopts him as a partner. And once again, like you'd see that kind of stuff that like a ton in this era of movies. It's not even like it's a particularly huge plot hole, but it's just weird to see now, because like you're expecting your movies to be like that much more realistic to.
Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
A vigilante Cajun to fight this, human hunting ring. So it's so like I guess I can kind of see the holes there, but once again, I don't really care.
Right. Yeah. And I mean that's sort of the implicitness of like he's deputized, for lack of a better way of putting it. So he goes to he finds and one of the great woo-isms of this film is that a dove comes into his apartment to illustrate to him that there should be 2 dog tags, not just one, on the corpse. And so he goes back to the. So sorry, we skipped over that. They find her father's body in a burned out house, in an abandoned house in a bad part of town, and they just sort of shrug and say like, well, he died in the fire. And at first I was like, he died in the fire. And it's really weird. The fire gave him like 4 arrow-shaped holes through his chest. It's really strange.
Odd.
But then I immediately was like, wait a minute. Louisiana. So I don't know how much people who listen to this are like aware of, criminal justice issues, criminal justice reform stuff that I'm like fairly obsessed with, but the state of Louisiana is actually one of the fucking absolute dirt worst about that stuff. And the idea that they would find a dead homeless person and just be like, well, looks like he was burned, I guess he was burned, is actually not a reach at all. And that they wouldn't even bother looking at like, there's holes in this guy, like, fuck it, he's homeless, he burned, we don't give a shit. That is not a reach whatsoever. But then they give a story justification, as it turns out, which is that the rich bad guys are paying off the one single coroner in New Orleans.
Sure.
to give, who has a very nice house, by the way, a lot of dark wood, classic, old turn of the century style house. I really like his house.
Yes,
but
a lot of beautiful houses in New Orleans.
Yeah, they're paying him off so that he fakes the autopsy so that no one ever is the wiser. But I don't even really think that they wouldn't need to do that. People would just accept that the homeless person got burned alive and wouldn't give a shit because that's whatever. So, but JCVD's too smart for that. The dove reminds him, hey, you get 2 dog tags, buddy. And so he goes back to the fire and finds the other dog tag, which has an arrow, had an arrow shot through it. Also, hot tip. If you're ever shot with an arrow, not that I've ever been shot with an arrow, but I have heard this as a survival tip. Don't pull it back out the way it came. Like that's when her dad gets it at the beginning, he gets hit with an arrow and he pulls it out the way it went in, and you don't want to do that. You want to pull it through because the spiky tip is gonna rip the shit out of you when you pull it back through the way it came in. Just pull it all the way through out the other side. You're better off that way. Not that it ended up mattering for him. But
and now you know, listeners.
That's right.
So, yeah.
So one of the arrows went through his dog tag, so it's got a big hole and a big, it's like, it looks like a bullet hole really through the thing, and he takes that to Cassie Lemons, and she she's pressuring the coroner, the only coroner in New Orleans, and he then gets a visit from Lance Hendrickson, and there's a really fantastic moment, which I also have a GIF of. Let's pull these GIFs back up here for a second, where Arnold Vosloo shoots him through the peephole of his house, right through the eye and out the back of the head. And as you said, this movie earns its R rating, and it's really... It's super good when he gets shot through the eye by Arnold Vosloo. But also they talk about openly how they're leaving and they're going to Eastern Europe. And then at one point they say like, fuck it, we could just like be in Mexico in 4 hours. Like, let's get out of here. When Arnold Vosloo is being the voice of reason later in the movie. And it's just like, why kill the coroner? You're going to be gone tomorrow.
Right.
Like,
right.
It doesn't matter.
Professional pride, Joe. Well, talking about that, they also assassinate the strip club owner guy, I have to say that I think my favorite note that I took of this is in this whole movie was there's no way that much of his head is left because Vosloo walks up, shoots him at point blank range, like under, like I think they even like show him like put it under his ear.
Yes.
And then like pull the trigger,
yes.
And then off screen you see like the blood hit the windshield. But then Van Damme comes up to check him, and like he's just slumped over the wheel, like head fully intact, no signs that he has been shot at point blank range at the back of the skull with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Which, just as Joe has never been shot in the arrow, I have never been shot at point
but they
blank
do
range at
like,
the back of the head with a shotgun. But I've been told it leaves a mark.
Yeah,
so.
They show all the buckshot holes in the window, and there's a giant blood. Like the shot from afar when he actually shoots him, and you get the splatter and all that. The squib goes off. Like, that's really good. It's just when they reverse shot, and he doesn't look at all like he's been shot in the face with a shotgun. You're just like, oh, that's weird. Okay, but. Backtracking from that a little bit, they get the black guy. What was his name again? You looked it up, and I already forgot it again.
I have moved past having that at easy access.
Yeah. He gets tapped to be the next hunted guy, and they specifically say, like, if you make it to the river, you get the $10,000. They never really address what happens if you kill the person who's hunting you. I would feel like in the actual proper rules, which they don't obey anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. But I feel like you win if you kill the hunter. You know,
right? That's the most dangerous games rules. So,
yeah, absolutely. Because the guy in that story, doesn't the guy, he drops him in like a Manchurian man trap or whatever, a punji pit or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's how he gets him. And it's like so there's really good use of New Orleans graveyards, cool graveyards, hashtag cool graveyard cinema,
hashtag cool graveyard cinema.
Yeah. Well, he's running from them, and the hunter dork. This is another, this hunter dork might be the best of all the hunter dorks in this movie. He can't even use the big gun he has to, because they say, like, whatever weapon, your weapon of choice, you can use to hunt this person. And he has this big, mean-looking machine gun with a sniper scope and all this stuff. And he's about to go after him, and Lance Hendrickson has to be like, turn the safety off, dumbass. It's just, they're all playing cowboy, and that's just, again, one of the funniest things. And, of course, the guy, the black guy who's been helping JCVD and Yancy Butler is a combat veteran. They talk about that. He was in the he wears an Army Ranger jacket. He gets the drop on him. He pops out of a crypt in one of those New Orleans crypts. He pops out, and because a lot of New Orleans cemeteries have above ground stuff because it's so swampy, you can't really bury people. I guess my understanding, having never lived in New Orleans, and this is one other thing that I kind of wish Angela was here, but my understanding is poor people get buried underground in New Orleans because that's the only, they can't afford above ground crypts, but really you want to be buried interned in an above ground crypt situation because the ground is so swampy that it's like you're not going to stay where you are if they put you underground, essentially, is my general understanding of how that works. So he pops out of one of these crypts and gets behind the guy, takes his gun away, and just, doesn't even, there's no like freeze, there's no like what's going on, he just ventilates this dude.
Yes. Well, once again, as you would.
Yeah, absolutely. But in action movies, so often there's like a dramatic pause, or like the one-liner, or like, what's going on, man? Why are you doing this to me? Or like a drop your other gun or whatever. Like, no, he ain't got time for that. He just perforates this dude. And it is so satisfying.
Yes.
But then, of course, again, you would think that means you win, but apparently not. And so then he gets chased into the French Quarter by Lance Hendrickson and Harold Vosloo. And this is where we're fully just in action movie territory. He's stumbling around. He's bleeding like a stuck pig because he's been shot, I think, twice by this point, asking people to help him. And all of these like drunken frat boy idiots like Ted Raimi on Bourbon Street or in the French Quarter are just like blowing him off like he's begging for change.
Right. Well, I would not depend on Ted Raimi for help either.
Well, fair enough.
Fair
enough. I know you did, Rick. I know you did. So they just gun him down like a bunch of dudes pop out of expensive cars and on motorcycles. They just roll up and absolutely spray him with bullets in front of like 50 random people. And then they just leave. And I guess the whole movie was supposed to just be like, yeah, the cops are on strike, so like they're going to get away with whatever. I guess is how we're supposed to process that.
You know what happens on Bourbon Street stays on Bourbon
Yeah,
Street.
right.
So,
Yeah. But it gets even worse because then we get to what you're talking about, which is that Arnold Vosloo kills the phone sex guy in broad daylight. I guess they're just tying up loose ends, even though they're going to Eastern Europe. So, like, what are the chances that, like, the on strike New Orleans Police Department is going to track them down to wherever in Eastern Europe they're going and, you know, catch them? But they're you know, they're tying up the loose ends as movie villains do. And they're just doing it in broad daylight. Blows that dude's head off in broad daylight. They roll up. So JCVD, Cassie Lemons, and Yancy Butler roll up in a cop car, and Vosloo and then like his goons, which were just hanging out around the corner, I guess, pop up.
Goons.
Well, yeah, fair enough. If I had goons, they'd be hanging around the corner at all times for me.
Right.
And they murder a cop again in broad daylight and are just like openly having a firefight with police in broad daylight. In an urban area, and like I guess the hope is that no one will notice.
New Orleans is fucking wild, man. What can you say?
I guess so. But then you get one of the finer moments in this movie when I think I have a gif of this too. JCVD kicks a dude off a motorcycle. And
I was going to say that is maybe the finest action beat in this motion picture.
Well, this whole sequence, which goes on, this is like the second big action set. This is really the first big action set piece. This is where
I guess it would depend on whether or not you count the hunt as. I mean, I give props to that first opening action scene, but yeah, I get like let's not split hairs here.
Yeah, right. So yeah, here we go. He kicks that dude right off the bike, and the stunt work is phenomenal. Like now, you know, maybe it might be safer, I guess, but now they would definitely CG that. You would not just see him cleanly kick that dude in the face and fall off the motorcycle, probably in most movies. But oh man, it looks so good when he kicks that dude in the face and he falls off the motorcycle.
And I'm wondering, how much of my initial reaction was like just being a blasé college asshole, and like how much is just, you know, being frustrated by like the last, you know, 20 years of action cinema and like just like going back to it and just being like, mwah, you know.
Absolutely is a factor for me, for sure. Is being like, oh right, like even, you know, I think the best Marvel movies have like good fight scenes, but a lot of them just have like CG video game characters like sort of impactlessly punching each other in the head.
Right.
Every once in a while, you get Captain America fighting George St. Pierre as Batroc the Leaper on a boat, and that's really good. But most of the time, you get, you know, like, you know, the Hulk punching Thanos, and they're just big CG blobs hitting each other. Right. And this is not that. And we've talked since The Raid came out basically about how, you know, there has been a newfound appreciation of this kind of stuff from the action audiences who are really into this stuff like we are. But, you know, writ large, you know, there's not this kind of stuff still isn't really out there, but at least in the core action movies, your John Wicks, I haven't seen Nobody yet, but I've heard that it's, you know, the action is all very well done in Nobody. You know, your Raid 1 and Raid 2 and all that stuff. You're getting this again, but it was so long. It was 20 years that, you know, we really weren't getting this stuff. And now, so to go back and see this and be like, man, look at the clean shots, the clean stunt work. I don't have a gif of it, but this is the scene where he surfs a motorcycle into a truck. And it is just so good. Oh, Ethan's here. Ethan has arrived.
Did I summon you by talking about S. Zoller?
I'm not sure what you were talking about. Is it just you two?
It's just us two.
Yeah,
it's just us two.
We've been,
and now it's you. Now there's three of us.
We've been keeping hope alive.
Yeah.
Well, I can't stay. Are we streaming, recording?
We are streaming, and we're streaming right now. We're live, baby, live.
Okay. I've got. I thankfully was able to get both of my COVID-19 shots. I got the second one on Friday.
This is a fully inoculated action cast right here, man.
Oh,
I'm getting my second one next week. I'm not fully inoculated yet.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think so.
Yeah, for whatever reason, people seem to have symptoms that last for a day or two. For me, the first shot anyway lasts for 5 days or so. And
Oh wow.
I'm still feeling this one.
Which one? Pfizer or Moderna?
Pfizer.
Okay. I got the first Pfizer. I had a sore arm. It felt like I was blasting reps for a day or two after, but that was it. But I've heard the second one is bad, so I already took the day off after I get the second one.
It
feels like I had like a almost like a flu, but without the fever, like aches and kind of like foggy brain.
Yeah.
I did the Johnson & Johnson. I had sore arm for a couple of days and some mild discomfort the first day, but nothing I can't deal with. Action Cast says get your shot out there.
Get vaccinated.
Don't come on.
Let us all go to movies again, please.
If we could do the Mr. T voice, we would.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I just wanted to pop by. I didn't watch the movie, but I did read about what this movie is about, and I know from Joe that maybe police unions are somehow involved in this movie. Is that correct?
So the justification, it seems, it's only really hit on once early in the movie as a justification of why the cops aren't going to look for Yancy Butler's dead dad, but it seems to be the tacit justification throughout the film that like the reason that the bad guys never get like tracked down by cops ever, even though they like shoot people in broad daylight, is because the police union is on strike. And I already said fuck police unions like 3 times, but you can say it again if you want to.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we
it's
probably
the old
feel
RoboCop
basically
2.
Yeah, I feel like I'd like to say that police should not have unions because they're not workers. They're masquerading as workers, but they're just agents of the ownership and managerial class. They don't deserve unions, and I support. I assume that police get kicked in the face in this movie.
There's only one cop really, and she's pretty well portrayed as being pretty good. One of the good ones. She's a detective, she's a black lady detective, played by Cassie Lemons. But she's the only cop that you see because they're on, except for the ones who are picketing when it's established that they're on strike. But other than that, that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. And there's a coroner who's corrupt, a city coroner who's corrupt and is helping Lance Hendrickson and Arnold Vosloo cover up their manhunting activities.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is the idea of this movie is that a bunch of like weird rich freaks are doing some kind of hobby that preys on.
We broke down the economics of it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, I can break it down again for you though, Ethan. I'll break it down for you very quickly, Ethan, so you can register. They have a dude who gives homeless veterans $100 to apply to be part of the human hunting operation. The human hunting guys, Lance Hendrickson is the leader. He's the brains of the operation. He gets $500,000 from a rich asshole to hunt a human. And then he offers $10,000 to the prey to be hunted, but there is no way they will ever win because basically it's a canned hunt and it's totally rigged. Like the very first thing you see is basically the guy wins, like he satisfies the getaway condition, and they kill him anyways and take the money back. So basically they pay $100 to a homeless combat veteran. Who then will be killed for $500,000, which Lance Hendrickson will pocket.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like stuff that I don't think that probably like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos did this, but I think they probably would think it's cool to do this and they might want to, and then they might just kind of like step back from the idea because of appearances, but it seems like...
So I think one thing that is really great about this movie that I think you would really appreciate, as I was saying to Bryce earlier, is that all of the hunters who pay the money to Lance Hendrickson, which he gets a bunch of them to hunt JCVD for $750,000 because JCVD is such a prestigious target. At the end, they are all complete hapless fucking dorks. And JCVD dispatches all of them with like minimal effort. So Except for the one guy that the other. So there's this black ex-army ranger who's like helping them find. He knows Yancy Butler's dad. They're both like homeless combat vets together. He gets roped into doing a hunt, and he kills the guy who's hunting him. But then Lance Hendrickson and Arnold Vosloo kill him anyways. But he kills the guy who's hunting him, and it's like super good and satisfying.
So Ethan, not to stray away, but just for the sake of my rapidly dwindling headphone batteries, can we round the corner into the swamp at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
From the
surfing a motorcycle into a truck.
Surfing a motorcycle, JCVD goes for the backup that you would want in this situation. One Wilfirmed Brimley,
yes,
playing a Cajun as he was always meant to do.
His Cajun accent is more convincing than Van Damme's, who is just
by a country mile.
Who just continues speaking in his normal Belgian accent, but Brimley commits to as Uncle Duvet. Yes. Moonshiner, Bayou Moonshiner Uncle Duvet is, and this is so this is where he gets Sven-Ole Thorsen as one of the hunting weirdos, and Van Damme basically leads them. There's a really fantastic moment where he punches a snake. I'm going to pull my GIFs back up here.
I was going to say that my second favorite note that I took on this simply read "exploding snakehead prosthetic."
There's
my third favorite,
Sven-Ole Thorsen getting helicopter kicked. The gif of which is fantastic.
My third favorite note that I took from this was, and once again this loses a little impact since no one showed up for this one, was, and you all gave me shit for Southern Comfort. I still remember that one.
I had more fun with this movie than Southern Comfort. I'm just gonna.
Oh man, bunch of fucking Philistines on this podcast. I tell you.
I'm gonna sign off so I could enjoy this podcast as a listener. After the fact, but my number one note that I took on the Wikipedia page for this movie is that I saw that JCVD's name in the movie is, what is it, Chance Boudreau?
Chance Boudreau.
Well, I initially read it as Chance Bordeaux, and I thought that was a name that was so good that there should be a movie about Chance Bordeaux.
It is Chance because
it's because his mama took one.
Yes,
so.
That is explained.
which is a groaner, but it's also a wonderful groaner.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is one of the worst movies for me to miss an episode, but I gotta rest my weary body.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, let us just take a bunch of notes on what we talk about, and then next month, before we do Mortal Kombat, you can tell us what you thought of Hard Target, of our takes on Hard Target. You should watch it too, because it actually rules. This movie rules.
I'm gonna watch it.
So. This one would definitely be Ethan Chang improved. I say that with no fear of being wrong on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It seems like it.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll let you go, Ethan. Speedy recovery, man. I'm glad you got vaccinated.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
So there's peace. So great chase in the swamp. Lots of fun little effects and beats and atmosphere. And Wilford Brimley, shooting arrows into people as he do.
Yeah.
But it all winds up at where else are you going to end this movie?
Hold on. We didn't. Okay. I know you're trying to get before your headphones die. But it is pivotal that we mention that after he punches the snake in the face, which there's a GIF of on screen right now, he bites its rattler off so it cannot alert the bad guys. And she's like, "Is it dead?" And he's like, "Not nearly," or something. Not whatever. And he rigs up a trap so that the snake will attack them when they come by. And since he bit off its rattler, they will not hear it rattle. Which also, I thought rattlesnakes were a desert thing and that water moccasins were what you had to worry about in...
I believe all that is accurate. You're right. You're correct. I apologize to our listeners. I did not give the scene enough time to breathe. I thought exploding snakehead prosthetic... did the job for me, but I was evidently wrong.
Yeah, no, the exploding snakehead puppet is also great. So after the snake kills a dude, because the trap works, because of course it does, it's JCVD, Lance Hendrickson shoots the snake in the face, and the puppet, the exploding snake puppet, which is really good.
the snake puppet gets the exploding headshot that the strip club owner
deserved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Frankly, if I can only get one headshot in a movie, I'll go with the snake one for sure.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they end up in the GIF that we're looking at now in a warehouse that stores Mardi Gras floats. Is where the final.
So we've established that this movie is pretty good and entertaining throughout. When it gets to this Mardi Gras warehouse scene, it kicks up into that. We talk about this being a step down under Hard Boiled, and like no two ways about it. It is,
but it feels like the warehouse shootout in Hard Boiled a little bit.
We just you can feel him light up with that kind of childlike energy you occasionally get in his movies, where he is so happy and psyched to play with this warehouse full of sculptures and puppets that are decaying and eventually lit on fire. Yes. Like this scene. The set is so much fun, and like how much it elevates what could have been an otherwise kind of just standard sparks and gears warehouse fight scene into this weird colorful phantasmagorica cannot be underestimated. It all of a sudden, like, just the movie goes to 10 and it stays there until the credits roll.
So this is where, as they are going to the warehouse, this is where Arnold Vosloo is like, I can just kill him from the helicopter. And Lance Henriksen's like, no, that's not honorable. What the fuck is wrong with you? And he's like, no, really, let me kill him from the helicopter. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. And then when they get to the warehouse, he's like, we could just leave. Like, we could be in Mexico in 5 hours. Like, let's just go. And Lance Henriksen's like, no, I'm going to kill this motherfucker. Like, he is not going to let it go. And Arnold Vosloo keeps being like, we can just go. Like, we're millionaire... like gangster motherfuckers, we can just leave.
Right.
And he keeps being like, no, I'm not going to let this be-mulleted Cajun defeat me. Which, it of course turns out to be his last mistake.
Right.
But he...
Truly, sometimes you just have to let those bemulleted Cajuns go.
Yes. I think my favorite, if I had to pick a single favorite action, like death or sort of beat moment in this movie... I think it has to be guy with a motorcycle drives into the warehouse. Van Damme's solution to this problem is to like roll up a gas can under his foot like it's a fucking soccer ball. Kick it directly into that dude's face, but before it impacts his face, shoot it in midair so it explodes and it blows him out the fucking window, and then like alerts the bad guys to the fact that like, oh, I guess we have to go in there now because he just fucking exploded one of our boys.
This is like seriously nothing but good times in this scene. It's just it's Jean-Claude Van Damme ambushing, and then sometimes not so much ambushing, as we just pointed out. Just randos in a warehouse that looks like a production designer's wet dream.
Yes,
and it is,
absolutely.
And like everything you would like to see them do with a warehouse filled with Mardi Gras floats is done with a warehouse filled with Mardi Gras floats.
It's so he jumps through. There's a moment where he jumps through a window and a door is literally a foot next to him. But like, fuck that, he ain't using that fucking noise. Door. He's jumping through that window. There's a like a rehearsal take of the face-off moment where he's shooting, and I think he used this also in Better Tomorrow too. Where they're on opposite sides of the wall, and he's shooting it where the wall is dividing them, but they're having a conversation through the wall as they reload their guns and are about to start shooting at each other, which I think is probably of his movies most famously in Face Off, because in Face Off, they then turn it at each other and they're both facing mirrors, so they're seeing the person they really do hate, whose face they're now wearing. But in this movie, they just start shooting at each other through these windows and kind of ducking down and avoiding each other. And that's where he jumps through the window. And when he eventually gets Vosloo's about to throw a grenade at him, but he dies before he can. So JCVD takes the grenade, and the use of the grenade is just...
It's great. Well, yeah. Well, but before we even get to the grenade, so yes. So from Vosloo, we get to Lance Henriksen. Lance Henriksen attacks JCVD with a flaming board. And you know what? I have given JCVD some shit on these two podcasts, but what I will say is this is probably my favorite moment of his on screen, and he pulls it off beautifully, which is he straight up grips the flaming board by the fiery part of it, and not for a little while, like for a good 30 seconds, while he just eyeball fucks Lance Hendrickson, because apparently Cajun skin doesn't burn, and it is one of the most gloriously stupid things I've seen in an action movie, and I have seen Sylvester Stallone cut pizza with scissors.
Yes.
So
yes.
I have seen Stephen Chow punch people so hard that they convert to Buddhism.
Yes.
I cannot exaggerate that this is just one of the most beautifully. I have seen Jackie Chan roller skate under an 18-wheeler. I have rarely seen anything just so beautifully and purely dumb as Jean-Claude Van Damme gripping fire to prove what a tough guy he is. So and it is just and the rest of the scene is great, but like you can't call it anticlimax because it all rolls into one beautiful thing. But like just that beat is so perfect, and the way once again the every shot is a hero shot pays off like wonderful.
Well, speaking of that, I think we also before we get to that even. I think I would really like to ask John Woo, like, what his vision of how we should be interpreting JCVD in this scene is. Like, it feels like he suddenly becomes this, like, otherworldly, like, avenging angel come to take Lance Hendrickson for all of his sins, because Lance Hendrickson is looking for Van Damme. He's not, he's kind of hiding, and he yells, like, how does it feel to be haunted? And Lance Hendrickson's like, oh, you tell me, like... And then he does a front flip through a wall of fire and midair fires a shotgun shell into Lance Hendrickson.
Well, Woo's films have always had a lot of like Catholic imagery and like themes and whatnot. And like I know that he is like personally like a practicing Catholic. And so when he said that he moved it to New Orleans, like that kind of got me interesting because once again, you're talking about a city that's been defined by hundreds of years of Catholic architecture, and it's like very much in the look of the place. I don't know if you see much of that like outside of the graveyard scenes, but yeah, I also don't think that you have a wrong read at all that like Van Damme is quite literally punishing Hendrickson for his scenes in this. There's definitely something otherworldly about him once you get to this scene,
right?
And it pays off a lot of fun.
He's just flipping through fire. He grabs the board and then he punches him, and then they do this whole, Hendrickson is just he's a rag doll at this point. He is just getting the shit knocked out of him by...
I'm wondering if this was a Sam Raimi note. I mean, who knows how much interest or whatever he had in it. But if you told me that like Sam Raimi ghost wrote this scene, I would believe you. This particular one, I'll let you do the blow by blow on it.
Well, I mean, this is just one of those moments where you're kind of waiting the whole movie for the villain to really get it. It reminds me a lot of Burton's Batman, where he finally fist fights the Joker, and the Joker is not a capable pugilist, so he just gets the shit beat out of him by Batman. Or Out for Justice, when he finally catches Richie. Anybody seen Richie? He finally catches... And like, Richie can't fight at all, so it's just Seagal beating the shit out of William Forsythe, like, in this kitchen, before he stabs him in the head with a corkscrew. And it's the same like vibe. Like he just starts whooping his ass, and then he has this grenade that he got from Arnold Vosloo, and my final note for this movie was pants grenade in all caps.
Pants grenade is I might have had that exact note as well.
Because he takes the grenade, pulls the pin, and throws it down Hendrickson's pants, and then kicks him into a wall. And Hendrickson starts freaking out, and he pulls the grenade out of his pants and unscrews the handle, which has the fuse part in it, and pulls it out, and he thinks that the fuse didn't make it all the way and that he's safe.
The fuse didn't make it all the way. He was almost safe.
And he makes he sighs, and then it sparks, and he makes the most hilarious noise, like, oh, whoa, and then he explodes.
He underplays that so beautifully.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing. But
it's like what you say when you spill half of your beer. Like,
right.
You're like, oh, it's not It's not all wasted. It's
Yeah.
we got some of this left. So
There's enough of this left for me to still keep a buzz
Yeah.
before I have to buy another one. And
Yeah.
and then he just explodes, which is lovely. It's a fantastic end. And there's one thing that I skipped, though. I just glanced at my notes for my pants grenade note, and that is that there is a moment earlier in this scene where Yancy Butler absolutely murders a man's penis, and it's pretty wonderful. I don't know why she doesn't aim for center mass or the head, but she has a gun, and this dude pops out of or from around a corner, and she just shoots him like 7 times in the dick. And
that's the John Woo touch there.
Yeah, yep. But Lance Hendrickson is blown up, and everybody lives happily ever after.
Let me just emphasize this, which is that, like, Joe and I we are not stupid. We are not unaware that there are camp and kitsch elements in this film. We have talked about them at length. That being said, I say this completely unironically. The pants grenade scene is like A+ cinema. Like
Absolutely.
it has like just perfect comic timing on it.
The whole warehouse sequence is just a masterclass. And I kick myself for having never watched this entire movie.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I've kind of talked about the reasons why I think I was being dismissive of this movie, and I don't think I was ever dismissive of it in the sense of like, oh, it's like a shitty movie or whatever. But like, I think I was like dismissive of it in the sense that like, well, it's a good Jean-Claude Van Damme vehicle versus being a good John Woo movie, and like the gulf between those two are just too high for me. I will stand corrected, mea culpa. This is just a good John Woo movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's one of his best. But this is going into rotation. I'm not saying I'm going to watch it every year or whatever, but like I'll be popping this on like just as often as I watch like the second tier John Woo movies. Like Last Hurrah of Chivalry or Hand of Death or what have you. Like, you know. This
is not going for me. You know, similarly, it's not going to like. This has gone straight to my top tier JCVD movies for sure. Yeah. I don't know that it could unseat Bloodsport just because I have so much nostalgia and like that kind of stuff, and I've seen it. You know, I can practically quote the entire movie at this point, but it's up there with Bloodsport in my view. This movie absolutely kicks ass, and I'm deeply shamed that I never watched it before this week. But I'm glad I bought the Blu-ray because it won't, like you said, it won't hit, Bloodsport or Total Recall or the Terminator levels of the rotation, but it will.
Yeah, and like talking about, like, I'm not saying I'm gonna like watch this instead of The Killer or Hard Boiled or Bullet to the Head or just those stone cold classics, but like I'll reach for this before I reach for Face Off again, probably. Like it's or any of the post return to Hollywood movies they've made, since going back to China.
Are any of those any good? I feel like I've heard that none of those are that good.
I like Red Cliff.
Isn't it like 5 hours long?
It is like 5 hours long. So, I'm not, yeah. So I think it's worth watching if you're a Woo fan, but like, does it touch the 80s and early 90s stuff? Probably honestly not. So.
Yeah. Well, this is one that gets a hearty thumbs up and a recommendation. Again, the best thing that I can say about it is what I wrote in my Letterboxd review of it, which is this is the only one of his U.S. movies that feels like one of his Hong Kong movies to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'm glad that we chose to do this one because I don't know if I would have revisited otherwise, and I'm really glad I did. Almost as glad as Wilford Brimley is that that flasks can stop automatic weapons fire. Apparently,
it was an arrow. I thought he got stabbed with an arrow.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
misspoke there, but
I will just take a moment, and I know we should wrap up regardless of your headphone battery situation, but we should definitely wrap up before that becomes a problem. Alex is here. Hey, Alex, you're just in time.
Yeah, just when I thought I was out.
Yeah.
Back in.
What happened?
I just want to take a moment.
We were literally wrapping.
Yeah, we're basically done. But I was just going to say that Hard Target 2, starring Scott Adkins, is not a patch on this movie, but it's actually pretty fun. I mean, Scott Adkins rules. I think Scott Adkins is way undersung as I wouldn't recommend this be your first Adkins. If you were going to watch, if you've never seen a Scott Adkins, or your first Hard Target, correct, absolutely correct. But if you've never seen an Adkins movie that isn't just like him in a minor role in like Doctor Strange or whatever, if you've never seen an Adkins movie, I would say start with Ninja or Ninja 2: Shadow of a Tear. And you really don't need to see the first Ninja to understand the second one at all. Just know that in Ninja 2, he has an extended fight with not Sho Kosugi, but his son Kane Kosugi, who played his son in Return of the Ninja, which we talked about years and years ago.
I think he was one of the Sentai too, like Super Sentai. Like,
oh yeah, probably. That makes absolute sense that Kane Kosugi would be one of them. But
did you actually watch this one, Alex? Or
not? I mean, I have seen it, but not recent. No.
Gotcha.
No. No, go ahead. I'll tell you. There was one reason why I even came onto the call, because I'm tired from work. But I will finish your. Please.
Well, my it's just Hard Target 2 is basically just straight up Most Dangerous Game. Like, there's no. Like, Van Damme doesn't volunteer. He's not part of the game in this one. It's sort of like the backdrop. Hard Target 2 is straight up Scott Adkins gets roped into doing Most Dangerous Game, and then he wins because he's fucking Scott Adkins. But it's still a fun movie, and he rules, and he does a lot of, he kicks people in the face and stuff. So, it's worth,
as you do.
Worth checking out. But what was the one thing you wanted to say, Alex?
I just needed to make sure you guys talked about the part where Wilford Brimley's on the horse riding away from the building that's exploding.
We actually didn't properly address that.
We did not do that. We had to pick up our pace when we
That is one of the best shots in any movie.
We spent more time talking about police unions than we did about the Wilford Brimley segments, which both shows you everything wrong and right about this podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Wilford Brimley. We glossed over how awesome.
Alex, talk it up some more.
Talk about how.
There's what else is there to say? Honestly, that's it. That's it. Yeah. It's one of the best shots. There's a scene. I don't remember the context. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. A building, I think it's like a barn or something, explodes, and in slow motion, Wilford Brimley, it rides away on a horse
with a bow and arrow. with a bow and arrow.
That's right. I thought it was a gun, but
nope,
you're right. It's
a bow and arrow,
which is funnier.
He blows up his own moonshine operation with the bow and arrow, and then as the chain reaction goes off, he's riding away on the horse with his bow and arrow. Yeah. It is lovely,
and it fucking rules.
Yes, it does. Fuck yeah, it does. Fuck yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. I don't know. You guys probably covered the rest. I'm tired. I got nothing. But the one thing I do have is holy shit, man. Wait, hang on. Let me go to YouTube.
You absolutely came in at the correct moment.
The correct moment to address that. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. If you go to YouTube and make sure this is the right thing, I'm going to tell you, I have to sit through a 15-second ad because I can't skip this one.
Uh-huh.
But I believe I have found a clip that is the exact, if you don't watch this movie, watch this, hang on, the ad's almost done.
Yeah, but you should watch this movie.
3-minute segment. Let me make sure this is it. Does this have the explode? Okay, there's an explosion. Yeah, there's Wilford Brimley with the bow and arrow. Okay, let me make sure it's got the exact hang on, sorry, accessing, loading.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Is your internet okay?
No, I'm scrolling through it. I'm trying to find the exact shot of. Okay, yeah, it's in here. All right, go to YouTube, search Hard Target Wilford Brimley, and the first thing that comes up is a movie clips account. It's called Movie Clips.
Mm-hmm.
It says Hard Target 6 out of 9. Hey, movie clips. Nice. Uncle Duvet, 1993. Watch that and enjoy the best 3 minutes of your life.
Yeah, it's real good. It's real good.
You're welcome.
We did mention that he has a better Cajun accent than JCVD, though. We did hit on that important point. So, but yeah, I give this movie an absolute recommendation. This is such a pleasant surprise. I still can't believe I never watched it before this week. And everybody who's listening to this, I know, crazy, right? I said that. I said I was glad it was just me and Bryce at the beginning because I felt like I was going to be pilloried if everybody was here, and I admitted that.
If I had rewatched it and then been here the whole time, I definitely would have ragged on you.
My experience with this movie as a kid was having the trailer on my Army of Darkness VHS tape and seeing the trailer over and over and over again every time I watched Army of Darkness, which was a lot. So.
Really, you?
Yeah, crazy, right? Crazy. Never would have guessed that I'd be into those.
I never would have guessed that.
But I will be back next month with a Mortal Kombat double feature. We're gonna watch we're gonna watch the original. What's that guy's name? Paul W.S. Anderson. Mortal Kombat, and what's probably spoilers, probably the best movie he's ever made, with the possible exception for Event Horizon.
Not an exception for Event Horizon, and that's definitely Smartest Man in Turlock territory. But
yes, it is. It is absolutely. Yeah. And then we're gonna watch the new one because it'll be on HBO Max or whatever by the time we do that. So we're gonna check out the new one. Which actually, I watched the trailer for the new one, and I gotta say, it looks kind of fucking dope. Like, I don't know how it's gonna turn out. I'm trying to temper my expectations, but I watched the trailer and I was like. Yeah,
I don't know.
That looks about like what I want from a Mortal Kombat movie is people getting their fucking spines ripped out and shit. So fuck it, let's do it. So we'll see. We'll find out. Come back next month to find out if I walk that back 1,000,000 miles and I'm like, this was terrible.
Someone needs to record this for that episode, just in case we need to make Joe eat all the crow in the universe.
I'll try to pull the clip out before we do it.
Let me ask you this: how many Christopher Lamberts are in the new one?
Right. 0. Sadly, there are 0 Christopher Lamberts.
F-. Fuck that.
Yeah.
I need to have the weirdest accent possible in all my Mortal Kombat movies.
Talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?
Lots of different pictures. This is one of the times that I'm going to be agreeing 100% with Alex, and it still feels weird. So
Yeah, man, it's weird every time, but
Yeah.
You guys will get comfortable with it eventually. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's the Action Cast for this month. We'll be back next month. We do this second Monday of every month at 10 o'clock Central Time.
Shit. I'm going to watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
And Alex is going to watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
You won't be laughing like that after you watch
No, dude, that movie is fucking hilarious, dude. That movie is great.
So we should say this for next month, but is it true? I feel like what I've heard about that movie is that like the effects budget got slashed after it was done. And they released it basically unfinished, which is a big part of why it looks so shitty.
I don't know if it's like unfinished. It's just shitty. It's just like I just thought it was super low budget. That may be. I don't know the details, but it's definitely bad, and it has like a lot of like really funny, really horrible like line deliveries in it that like amongst my friends at the time like have been like pillars of our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I know that feeling.
Continue to this day. Like, it's terrible. It sucks, but it's great. Anyway, don't worry about it.
Just like the Action Cast.
We'll be back.
I'll tell you about it in a month.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a month. Thanks everybody for who tuned in or who's listening to this later. If 50,000 of you listen to this, can you tell us why?
Yeah, just a couple comments. Just make it that much less mysterious. We have enough weird shit to deal with in this universe. We don't need to be wondering why the Time Cop episode was the only successful thing we've ever done in our lives.
No. Even the videos that I put a lot of work into, the ones that have done good numbers are still below that Time Cop podcast by like 10,000 at least. So it's weird. But we're done for this month. We'll be back next month. And that was the Action Cast. No coming attraction. No, I can't. It's hard for me to do those live. So good night, everybody. Stream
guys,
finish.